Hi guys, welcome back. So as you may have noticed, it has been quite a hot minute since I have posted anything on this channel. I do have a list of excuses lined up, most of them are valid. However, I'm going to skip over all of that right now and just jump into what I'll be talking about today. So, on this channel I try to feature as many engines as possible that I think are worthy of a video, whether they be worthy of some kind of achievement in the modeling world, like a blue box chassis, or just interesting engines by themselves that signify something bigger, such as an Alton Limited or Rivarasi's PS4. That being said, I do end up getting quite a few engines that just don't make it to the channel one way or another. And those engines are equally deserving of their own video, however, due to many factors, being that of my own laziness, being busy, and just not getting around to it, these engines don't get featured in videos of their own. So today I'll be showing you some of these engines. You're getting a sneak peek just off of this camera angle, but there is definitely more. And I'll be telling you when I got them, why I got them, and what's the plan for them. So, without any further ado, let's get straight into the video. Alright, so the very first engine I'll be talking about today is this lovely Kato Burlington Route Gp-35. Now I purchased this engine about a month ago, actually almost exactly a month ago, as part of a lot that had two other engines in it. Now these engines were not included together, but I just happened to purchase all three when I was in. This engine I believe was for $25. It was included in just a bin, and I didn't really realize this was a Kato until I put it on the track, and you know, they have some pretty distinct running qualities to them. That's not to say that they're bad at all. In fact, Kato mechanisms are absolutely bulletproof, and the only thing this one needed was a clean and a service. The engine itself is fairly well detailed. One of the biggest gripes that people have had with this engine in particular is that it is lacking the characteristic Burlington Route nose lights that almost all of their diesels had. So that's kind of unfortunate, but the rest of the engine looks very sharp. Some of the great paint quality that we've come to expect from Kato, and the mechanism also being Kato is very good. Two massive flywheels, so very smooth start and very good pulling capacity because the entire thing is made out of metal. So that's about it on this engine. As for future plans, I think I'll just keep this one around for a little bit. It adds a little bit of variety to my Burlington power. So you can probably expect to see this guy pulling a freight train in the background in an upcoming video. And now, in a stunning display of positional continuity, we have jumped to the front of the line and are looking at an Athearn RTR Burlington Northern Spirit of 1776 Sd40-2. Now, a couple of videos ago, you may have seen a Chicago Northwestern Sd40-2 that was also made by Athearn going around the layout. And a video, probably more recent, you saw Wisconsin and Southern Sd40-2 go around the layout for Skylar Junkson's Boxcar Challenge. Now, the reason why I came to acquire this particular Sd40-2 is kind of twofold. One, I really like Sd40-2s, and B, this is in the bicentennial scheme for Burlington, and I think that this is one of the sharpest looking schemes that Burlington ever painted their diesels. Now yes, I have a Cascades Green engine that we'll talk about later right behind there, just so that people in the comments can point out how wrong I am about dissing Cascades Green. However, this paint scheme in particular, with the American flag, the Sitting Bull roundel, and just that kind of cursive font on the side, really tie this engine together. Now this engine was in horrible shape when I got it. It's made quite the transformation. If I can find pictures, I'll put it in, otherwise forget I said anything. It was missing one of the drive shafts that Athearn RTR engines have to power the rear truck, so when it was put on the test track, barely moved at all. That kind of worked in my favor a little bit. So I happen to have a spare U-joint from an old project, so that was able to get in there, except this engine also had one of the oldest DCC decoders I've ever seen. It is this thing right here, a Digitrax DH123. Now this guy was stuffed into the Athearn socket here, and to give Digitrax some credit, that old decoder did manage to run this engine. However, it sounded like a bomb was about to go off, and it made the motor buzz like crazy. So to rectify that problem, I decided that this engine didn't need DCC. So I just found another dummy plug and threw that in there, and now it runs pretty darn good, considering where it came from, which is the parts bin. This engine was purchased for $20 simply because it did not run well and it looked horrendous, and as you can see, it's still missing a ton of parts and the plow's cracked. But all in all, it's a very handsome looking engine. I really like SD40s, and well, this was a welcome addition. So this guy probably will be sticking around unless somebody makes an offer on it. I imagine that you'll see this one for a little bit. And sticking with the theme of jumping around all over the place in the line, this was the third engine that was purchased on that day. This is an MU2 drive Alco C430, I think? Correct me if I'm wrong. This engine was literally found in the bottom of a bin, and it still wears its battle scars from that experience with pride. I got this engine without truck covers. It had truck covers from a Bachmann RS3 that were glued on there, and it looked hilarious because now there's actual Tyco truck covers on here, but the Bachmann axle covers were short, so the axle center was about here, although the center of the wheel was about there. This engine also needed an extensive mechanical look. These are MU2 drives, so they're very, very bomb-proof, and they weren't this one wasn't terribly hard to get running very well. This is probably one of the better running MU2s that I have in my collection now. The other thing that I did to it was just paint the handrails black because I think it looks better. I got the truck covers from another parts Tyco. I think that one was a Power Torque, and it worked just fine. One slightly interesting note is that somebody who probably was the one who put this at the bottom of a scenery bin went through the trouble of putting a single knuckle coupler pocket on the back, which was hot glued on. Now it's epoxied on, so it's slightly less sketchy, but somebody went through a lot of trouble and then proceeded to throw this engine into a bin. Running condition wise, it's very good now. You can get these to run like sewing machines, and with the help of Dan from Dirty Dan's Trains, he showed me some tricks that he has and also made a video on it. I'll link it at the top right. If anybody has ME2 drive engines that they want to get running better, definitely go and check it out. Anyway, this engine will probably stick around. I've been wanting a Burlington C430 for a little bit now, and this is probably going to be the last Burlington engine I will buy for a while. I say this and I'll probably go around tomorrow and find another Burlington engine, but for now, this seems to be the final piece. This engine was purchased for $5 because it was in such a bad state. It looks significantly better now, which frankly I'm pretty happy with and pretty proud of, but it's come quite a long way. And now, taking the place of that Tyco C430 is something about 30 years more modern. This is a complete oddball in my roster right now, which is why it probably won't stick around. However, let me introduce you to this Blue Box -9. I picked up this engine because I wanted to see what Athearn's final Blue Box chassis looked like. This Blue Box model was released in, I believe, 1995, and it was produced until the end of Blue Box kits in about 2004. While the SD40-2 mold, I think, was revised before the end of Blue Box production, this was the last new Blue Box mold that was produced. In fact, like the F7 here, this mold went on to be basically copy-pasted, reused on the RTR series of Dash 9s. I picked up this engine for a couple of reasons. First and foremost being I wanted to see what the chassis was like on these things, just to get experience on them. And two, because this paint scheme is actually pretty special. This is a General Electric's Demonstrator scheme, and it's very, very sharp looking. This engine itself is, as you can probably see, about 40 to 50 years too new for the rest of my fleet, but It was definitely a fun weekend project to get this thing to run better. This thing now runs very solid. Definitely could run a little bit better. I need to get a new gearing set for the front, or just re-gauge it, either way. However, I think this one will probably go to a friend of mine. Yeah, it's definitely a fun project, but it's way too new and I don't end up running it a lot, so probably won't see too much of this guy. Hopefully it'll find a permanent home in the near future. Now I'm going to do the piece on these two set of Blue Box ABAF7s together for a couple of reasons. Number one, they were done by the same person, and two, they were bought on the same week, which was the last week of July. Now for prices, this Northern Pacific set, which you can see here, was $40, and the Santa Fe set was, I believe, $30. I have boxes for both of these, which is kind of nice, but these engines are also kind of dressed up in a literal sense, because the previous owner has put the Walthers F7 dress-up kit on them, which includes, not sure if the camera will focus, but separate grab irons, which are pretty visible, as well as doing separate numbers for each one of these units. So the lead unit is A, the B unit is B, and the trailing A unit is C. On top of that, they also have closer coupler boxes put on them, so the spacing is closer to the 3 feet that the prototype has, and also rubber diaphragms, which are really nice. Now, both of these sets are using late model Blue Box chassis under them, which have the massive weight on them, much reminiscent of the old super geared days from the 60s, which is kind of cool. On top of that, the newer motors make these very, very quiet runners, and that's when I get to the kind of sad part, because I don't run this Northern Pacific set all that much. I purchased this with the intent of possibly either gifting it to a friend, which didn't really pan out, unfortunately, but it's probably going to go in the next couple weeks. I don't have any other Northern Pacific stuff, and as much fun as I've had getting these to run really good and just running them around the layout, they don't really have a purpose, so probably won't see too much of that. However, this Santa Fe set is going to be featured on many future videos, including the review of the MTH F7s, which were teased in a couple videos, which should be out sometime within the next 10 years using my current upload schedule. So look out for that. And that's about all I have to say for these guys. Both really wonderful sets. I've had quite a bit of fun working on them, and just goes to show that you can never go wrong with Blue Box. Now, this engine here is probably one of the more road and era appropriate engines that I've come to acquire in the last couple of months. This engine, of course, is a newer Bachmann Niagara. This one is using the latest revision of their drive system, so this is not the Plus, this is not the Pancake. This is the newest drive system that Bachmann makes for these. This engine was involved in a trade. I sent a good friend of mine a Alco C628 in Southern Pacific Blood-Nosed for this guy. This engine needed a little bit of work when I got it, most of it cosmetic. The front plow was missing, the whistle was broken off, and for some reason the back of the tender was missing its clips. So that was fixed pretty quickly, and the drawbar pin was also gone, so I have one epoxied in right now, so these are permanently joined together. Overall, this engine runs very, very good now. I can insert a couple of clips later in the video. It is my first new Bachmann steam engine, so I'm very, very happy with that. And it really fits in with a lot of the New York Central stuff that I have. So this engine is definitely not going anywhere. This is probably going to be part of my collection for a very long time. It looks really good aside the Rivarossi Hudsons. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with this engine in specific, and I am happy that I finally have a Niagara. And now the final engine that I will be talking about today is the most recent one. This engine is, it will bend your eyes a little bit when you look at it, because the shell is a Proto 2000 Gp-35-2. However, the chassis is an Athearn Blue Box Gp-35-2. I have my reasons for doing this. This engine, at least the Proto, was purchased about 3 weeks ago, actually for a friend. However, upon further inspection, it had suffered the zinc rot problem that for some reason Proto Gp-35-2s have. I don't understand how this happens, especially with a company like Proto, which has such a reputation, but I guess I shouldn't be too harsh on them because Kato also had a zinc rot problem. But long story short, the shell is the only thing left of that engine other than a pile of parts. Most of those parts will be going towards other projects, so in a way that's a silver lining to this whole ordeal. But the chassis was found in a parts bin and actually fits a Proto shell very well, because unlike some Blue Box diesels, the Gp-35-2 follows blueprints very closely. So the only thing I had to do was trim off the coupler bottom pockets for the shell to fit on. And as you can see, it's sitting level. Looks like it belongs to a degree, and now I have an Athearn Blue Boxified Proto 2000 Jeep. This engine probably will be going away. I don't understand what my brain does sometimes. I spent a couple hours working on this engine, but I probably won't run it all that much, so hopefully it'll find a good home fairly soon.